What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. I am here in Birmingham, Alabama. So glad you decided to join us today for another episode of the REI Live podcast, Real Estate Investing Live. If we're not in your city, we will be coming to your city very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. We interview the very best real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business leaders, all throughout this great country of ours. And today is definitely no different. The man with the best name in all of real estate investing. We have Mr. Gary Boomershine with us today. How's it going, Gary?
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure. Super excited to be here and share good stuff with your people. And you and I chatted just a few minutes before. I love doing this. This is a way for me to give back and share, all the lessons learned, right? I got into real estate in 2004 and man, learning from a fire hydrant and a lot of trap doors in this business, but I love to be able to share, hey, this is what's working for me and what I'm seeing. And we can have a lot of fun with this.
I'm fired up because this is why I love doing podcasts, to get a guy like Gary on this show. Really, I mean, one of the guys I consider to be the godfather of marketing. And I know you would probably give credit to a lot of other people, but that's kind of your thing. Is when I think of Gary Boomershine, I think of direct mail. I think of the marketing guy, the guy that's going to get the phone to ring. And I want to talk about all that with you on the show. But before we do any of that, you mentioned you got started in 2004. I would like to kind of go back to 2004 real quick. And because I actually don't even know your story, I would love to learn how you even got into real estate. And then how did you become known as the marketing guru that you are today?
Oh, man. What a great intro. Okay. So, so today we're 2018, right? So 2004, I just shared the story. I was at a mastermind with about 100 people and just shared the story. So 2004, I came out of the technology world. I live about 45 minutes from San Francisco. I was right in the heart of the whole .com boom and bust. And I was originally, I started in a high-tech, I've got a computer engineering background and real estate, by the way, which was interesting. I had no interest in doing the real estate thing. It was more, got into it by force because my family had a business. So I got a computer engineering degree and I worked for a big consulting company. It's now called Accenture. It was super awesome. I was working like 100-hour weeks, never saw sunshine, traveled, but never actually saw anything because I was always inside of a concrete building. And I did that for 5 years and then decided, you know what, I'm going to get into technology sales, the really where the big money was, so I can have a life. And my first year I was on a United Airlines, 180,000 miles my first year. But it was 2004, went to a seminar, got really excited about a particular concept. Back then, 2004, it was actually negotiating with banks and doing short sale deals that nobody even heard of, by the way. That really didn't become popular until like 2007, 8. And I got excited. And so anyway, we had a 2-month-old baby. My wife and I both, she left her 6-figure marketing job. We had a big mortgage in California. And dude, I took the plunge and I cannot believe it. We had a 2-month-old baby and a 4-year-old, and I went full-time real estate investing.
You took the plunge like right away with nothing. Never done a deal?
I had a pipeline. So I had 3 really good deals, and but I actually didn't cash out on the first one for 6 months. So we went 6 months without income, but we ended up netting $181,000. I screwed everything up except the negotiation. But you know what? I look back. I shared this story just a few days ago that it was persistence and tenacity. The people in this business that actually, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and there's a lot of people that I call them chasing shiny objects, and you've got to be relentless. I looked at it like, hey, I've got a one shot at this. I'm going off an aircraft carrier. If I don't get it right on the first shot, I'm going into the water. And we got our first deal, and I've done I don't know, 350, 400 deals. And then the big one is, you said you think of me as a marketing guy. I'm actually more a sales guy, and coming out of the technology world, I knew that I wanted to get in front of as many sellers as possible, and I was interested in the result, not all the other minutia to get me in front of them. It's like, put me in front of sellers. I'm really good at getting those deals signed, and then all the money is after the signed contract, right? It's building the relationship and then taking it from there. And so I ended up taking my technology background and I hired a group overseas from my past to build an algorithm for doing direct mail. And it started working, and then it took off, and we've done 27 million pieces of direct mail since. It's kind of insane. I think we've got more direct mail experience than anybody, not only in real estate investing, but real estate agents as well. 27. And what's interesting, I run for those of you that don't know me, I run a group called REI Vault. It's an agency where we actually have a shared team of experts. There's over 65 people on our team that basically do marketing and sales for about 230, 240 experienced real estate investors around the country. So we're basically managing their direct mail and their Facebook ads and their systems. And then we're a massive follow-up process of doing text messages and slide broadcast, ringless voicemail. And then I built a phone team. So a phone team that's actually kissing frogs. They're doing all of the follow-up and qualifying and scheduling appointments. So it's really marketing and conversion that we're doing. And it's been great. It's been an amazing journey, man.
If your team is doing all of that for the investors in REI Vault, what does the investor do?
That's, it was really funny. Somebody else asked, it's sales acquisition. So this business is about, once you're in front of sellers, right, that want to sell, it's building a relationship, interacting, writing, structuring the deal, and then everything on the back end. And so we're not playing the sales acquisition role. We are playing expert marketing and expert lead processors, right? Inside sales agents that are trained, that are really good on the phone, that can do it, faster, cheaper, better. So it can allow us as real estate entrepreneurs to be in front of as many sellers as possible.
So you just gave me, I wrote a whole page of notes. You just gave me a ton. This could be, I'm glad you gave me permission to go over an hour. We could go over an hour on this thing because I got a lot of questions. I want to go back to something that you said in the very beginning of that last answer you gave. You started talking about, for you, your story was, you got out of it. You got out of your old job. You kind of went in just kind of head first, hadn't even done your first deal yet, which I don't know if you would recommend that to other people.
No. And actually it's like I just turned 49 and I look at, okay, so I've been in the business. I was in my 30s. I'm like, I was looking back. I'm like, how are my wife and I able to do that? Such risk. So I'm always telling people, you know what, actually the safe way to do it is make this business real and build the vehicle, right? But don't burn the ships. And I'm not a huge Napoleon sort of burn the ships. It's just too much risk. I think this business, a lot of people do it that way, but it doesn't have to, right? I think it's, and I'll tell you one other thing. I've learned this years later, having really good personal accountability coaches and being in mastermind groups are absolutely essential because, sometimes going to maybe a boot camp, it's a different sort of process, right? You're learning, right? You're learning, and there's a lot of, I call it, you got 7 doors in real estate in front of you, and 3 of them are really good, but 4 of them could lead you down rabbit holes, right? And I find when you go to a mastermind, you get really good coaching. They're really about how you make sure, here's how you focus on those 3 and get massive traction in your business. And I didn't really have that. And it's purely a grace of God, man, of how, and it really is. I actually think, I look back at how we survived, and we definitely, was more than just pure luck.
So that was actually my question. I'm glad you touched on that because that was actually the question I was getting at. You said what kind of sets you apart or what was able to give you kind of the success right off the bat, the persistence, the tenacity, relentlessness versus the shiny object syndrome. The biggest mistake I'm seeing today, because I coach brand new people, and the biggest mistake I see today is people they drown in opportunity.
Yeah, they do. There's a guy, his name is Nasser El Arabi. I think you know Nasser.
Yeah.
He's in North Carolina. I love that guy. But he says, he's got some great one-liners, but chase too many rabbits, catch none. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's this business, real estate investing, there's no innovation, right? It's not like technology. It's like you want to find something that works right, by somebody that's really doing the business, and then you want to replicate it. And you want to do exactly what they do, right? And then you improve it. And then you expand on it. So a lot of people will go and they'll learn about apartments, they'll learn about wholesaling, they'll learn about fix and flip, and then they're so spread out that then all of a sudden they run out of money, right? And so that's the business is around pick a strategy, right? Have somebody that is really solid, that's really making money, and follow them, right? And then execute. And
how can give it? I'm a big believer in actionable type of items. Give what's something that someone can actually do to choose. Because in the beginning, and I know this, when I went to my first seminar, you went to your first seminar, they're talking about a million different things. They do it that way on purpose to get you excited about a bunch of stuff. How can somebody actually choose one narrow pathway? Give people that listening just like an actionable piece of advice.
Yeah. So are you going to be buying rentals, right? Are you going to be rehabbing? Are you fix and flip? Are you wholesaling? Are you lending? Are you buying notes, right? Non-performing notes? Are you going after and negotiating short sale deals? Are you buying apartments? Are you buying luxury homes? Are you, and there's a million of them, right?
Totally.
Those are all different strategies. It's a totally different skill set. It is a totally different capability. So you need to pick one. I'll tell you what I like, right? In this market, if you're brand new, wholesaling, right now in this market, there is so much money to be made wholesaling.
I agree.
Why? Because real estate has been a 7 to 8 year cycle for over 100 years. And where we are in the cycle, there are a lot of cash buyers, right, that are not finding the deals. And if you actually, and you very little risk. So that's number one. Number two is what I call the channel. And that is, some people are like, oh, Facebook ads. Like, how do you go find deals? Facebook ads, direct mail, cold calling, pay-per-click, bandit signs. It's like, pick one channel first and get it working, and then increase and replicate it. And those people that are actually, by the way, every large major corporation does this as well. You want to get really good and work something, because I call it 3 Feet from Gold. There's such a great book, Brian. I've given out like 300 or 400 copies. Actually, even more. I bet I've given out 1,000 copies. It's called 3 Feet from Gold. It's a Napoleon Hill foundation book. Greg Reed or Sharon, gosh, I probably have it sitting right there. But many of us are 3 feet from gold. And what we're doing is we're like 3 feet from gold, and then we're stopping and moving into a different direction. And that's so dangerous, especially when most of us don't have infinite dollars, right? And our life depends on it. So it's pick one. I think as a new investor, new entrepreneur, I love wholesaling. It's a great place to start. And then once you get it good, then the second thing you add on is possibly making creative offers. And then apartments possibly down the road. And so a lot of new investors make the mistake of, getting, it's like, I can go and sign up for this next boot camp. Education without implementation is super expensive entertainment. It's like, just go get Netflix. If you're trying to get educated, right, for the sake of education, there's a lot better ways than spending. And by the way, I've spent well into the 6 figures on education. But whatever you do, you want to always track, like, my ROI should be at least 10x minimum, right? So if I spend, I'm involved in, let's see, 4 masterminds right now, and they're all pretty expensive. They're 7-figure guy masterminds. I'm going to Mexico in February as an example. But each one, I'll get 3 or 4 nuggets. I'll execute on those 3 or 4 nuggets. And even if I spent, let's say, $40,000, and I can come out and make $500,000 on that idea, it's a no-brainer, right? So anyway, I don't know if that answered your question, but it's so important to stay focused, pick something, have good mentors and coaches, and be involved in the right people that are actually doing this business.
I love it. I talk about the same thing. One of my first coaches and mentors told me it's depth versus width. Stop trying to spread yourself out so thin. You want to go deep in one channel. You mentioned marketing. You mentioned there's all these different ways we can market today. Facebook ads were all the rage, even now. but they're all the rage. And you're a direct mail guy. You mentioned cold calling before we got started on the show. Let's kind of shift gears and talk about marketing specifically, even though I do want to get back to where you said you're more of the sales guy. You're not really the marketing guy. I do want to get back to that. But I want to talk about marketing for a second, for maybe this segment. And talk about you just got done saying that you've done 27 million direct mail pieces. And is this over the lifetime?
It is.
Okay.
27 million is we're mailing out right now between 750,000 and a million pieces of direct mail, postcards, handwritten letters, the Google Street View. We call that Smart View because Google, has a patent or what have you.
Right.
And all kinds of crazy stuff, direct mail. So we're sending out 750,000 to a million pieces a month right now, but over the hit, and that's not just for me. That's for about 200, and there's about 230 of us right now. We got some guys like Clay. We got a guy in Indianapolis, Clay Manship. He just posted. It was really cool. He actually did a Facebook recording. We actually posted it on our site. He's made 1.8 million this year just off of direct mail in his market. Last year he did 850,000 in the year. His first year in business he did 150, and that was just on direct mail. And he's not even having to. It's like, hey, until I've tapped out direct mail, right? There's no reason to go and do other stuff.
For sure. So if I were to ask you today, Gary, in your estimation, direct mail is number one for you today, even with the expense with it, even so, because that's the thing that most people say is it's expensive. I don't know if I have my everything dialed in right. If I'm not answering a call, I send out a piece and I'm not answering the call. There are all these dynamics with direct mail, and you still think it's at the top of the list.
Well, if it's done right, there is a formula, and there is both the art and the science, and both are required to make it work. And I'm really happy to share all, and also give your listeners some tools and some recommendations. There's a way to take all the mystery out of the dollar amount, and what you should spend and how you should do it, et cetera, et cetera. But direct mail in most of the areas of the country right now is crushing it. There's a couple of markets that are harder. Denver is a tough market to do direct mail right now. I know a lot of people, it's the cost per deal. When you're looking at marketing, you want to think about your cost per deal and then your net profit, your profit per deal. And you typically are doing it, most of us are doing the profit per deal before the cost of marketing. Okay. So let's say you're wholesaling and you're making $15,000 on average, and it costs you $1,500. Actually, let's just say it's $3,000 a deal. So let's say in marketing, it's $3,000 a deal, right? You're sending out enough postcards and enough letters and buying lists, blah, 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 right? And you're for every $3,000, you're closing one deal and making 15. That's a 500%, or what we call a 5x ROI. That should be a no-brainer. That's like you spend $1, you make $5, right?
So that's true. So
go ahead.
Here's the objection. I want to talk to you about the objection, because we get a lot of people right now. They don't know I know you're about to give it to me. But they don't know the formula to make that happen. If I can put $5,000 in a slot machine, it's going to spit me out 50 grand. Boom. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to do it every time. But most do not have that formula figured out.
Yeah. So I'll give you a website, by the way, that'll give you all the formula. So here's the thing. You've got to send enough pieces to get enough people that call, right? There are people that put up their hand, and of those that are actually going to actually say, yes, I'm interested in selling, and then they want to sell it typically at a discount, right? That number is pretty simple. Most people across the country that are doing it and tracking it, 1 in 30, could be 1 in 20 to maybe 1 in 30, 1 in 35 leads, right, off of direct mail should get a deal.
Okay.
And then that's if you're putting a pretty specific message to buy the house. If you're putting a more generic message, some of you have actually seen the third notice that's called blind copy. Dan Kennedy created. Actually, that was a Chris Chico, one of my super good friends, created that. I mean, that's probably the biggest money maker, postcard, but that's going to take more leads. So you've got 1 in 30, but here's the thing. You've got to follow up with those 30. It does take a live phone conversation, and actually multiple. So you got to generate the leads. And then number 2 is there has to be some text message and voicemail follow-up on a schedule. And then somebody needs to, what I call, kiss the frog. Somebody's got to call those sellers. And what we've found is it's 1 in 20 dials. You're dialing a seller 20 times to get somebody to answer. Isn't that crazy? What I mean by, I should say, somebody comes in as a lead, it's taking about an average of 20 phone dials to get them back on the phone.
Right, yeah.
And most people don't do it. So direct mail, and I don't want to get so in the weeds and overwhelm everyone. They're like, oh my gosh, what is this guy talking about? But here's the thing. You got to get a bunch of calls, right? You got to get people to come in and say, yes, I may want to sell. And then somebody's got to do that phone follow-up work. And if that phone follow-up, right, it's like peanut butter and chocolate, right? You got to have both. So you got to have the good marketing to get the calls, and then somebody actually has to be talking to those sellers to schedule an appointment, screen them, qualify them, ask them about bedrooms and bathrooms, because a lot of people are going to call and say, I'm not interested in selling right now, or I was just checking you out to see if you'd ask, what you're going to offer me for the house. But then you're going to find the 2 or 3, they're absolute slam dunks. The timing is perfect. Can you come over and buy my house, right? But somebody has to do the phone work.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is we basically said, you know what, let's solve both those problems for the real estate entrepreneur. Let's provide the consistent marketing and the phone team so that we can do it better than anybody else and get them in front of sellers that pre-screened, that are qualified, and an appointment is set. And
so you do all that for the investors that are involved with REI Vault. And basically, to point, I asked you the question kind of tongue in cheek earlier, what does the investor do? They have to actually go on the appointment and they close the deal.
Right.
You're doing all the follow-up. You're taking the call. You're doing the follow-up, because follow-up's the key probably to the whole thing. You're doing all that.
Right. What we're doing is we're saying, like, hey, let us get you, how many sellers do you want to be in front of, right, that are ready to sell on a weekly basis? Give us that number. We'll build a plan and give you a plan on how we together can accomplish it, and then we'll execute it for you. So I provide it's like having an extended team of the best marketing and salespeople, right, at a fraction of the cost. It's really the cost of like one VA. In fact, Sean Terry was the one that gave me that number. We've been doing it for years. So imagine having somebody that's doing all your marketing, pulling special custom lists, making sure that the mail goes out, doing all the text and voice follow-up, giving you a Podio system, and then a phone team for less than $2,000 a month, all in and out. And we do guarantee, it's plus the marketing, right? Whatever the marketing budget is going to be, but we guarantee the lowest cost marketing. So we just, our cost, because of our volumes, we're able to get a better price for our postcards and letters than anybody else can get across the country.
So let's just talk about that for a second, because $2,000 for the service. What about, what do you recommend in, let's just say, a medium-sized market? How many different pieces should we be sending out so we can get 2, 3, 4 deals?
Yeah. So I'm going to start big picture. You're in Birmingham, right? Birmingham, Alabama. Your cost per deal is $800 to $1,200 a deal. Good marketing, that's scalable. $800 to $1,200 should get enough calls to put you in front of enough sellers that are interested in selling, that are the perfect timing for you to close one for every $800 to $1,200. If you're in Florida, you're probably looking at, in fact, I know, but we got a guy, Brett Burris there, and in a very competitive market, and their cost per deal is about $2,500, $2,500 per deal. If you're in California, it's probably $4,000 to $5,000, and if you're in San Diego, probably closer to $8,000 or $9,000 or even $10,000 per deal. Right? That means it's all the formula is right to get enough people to call that are interested so you can close a deal. But what's cool is, I would imagine Birmingham, Alabama, your profit per deal is probably smaller than like us in California.
Totally.
Right? So really what we're finding, and this would be great for your listeners, what I'm seeing If you're a wholesaler anywhere in the country, you should be probably between 4 and maybe 10x return on investment. So spend $1, you should be making 4, kind of on the low side, or as high as $10. For every dollar you spend in marketing, you get $10. That's a 10x. That's better than any business really on the planet in terms of return on investment. So if let's say it's $5,000 in California, right? You're looking at probably a $30,000 wholesale flip minimum. And some guys are, and gals are doing 60, 70, 80,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps, but that's a really good gauge. A lot of people are like, they get so stuck in the minutia because they don't have any experience in really marketing and sales. And so they get stuck on a better list and a better postcard. Those are all traps. You need to know, you don't want to invent anything. The postcards and the right list are already out there. You just have to tap into them. We actually take care of all that for everybody that's in our group. So like there's a Google Street View postcard right now that has a text message on it. It works great. We have a postcard. We have a postcard that is we got it from Brad Chandler, actually. Brad with Express Home Buyers. Those guys are awesome. I know that they do over $1 million a month, probably a lot more now. But there's a postcard that we've been using with our group called our 1031 exchange that's been amazing. An average of over 4% response rate across the country.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that helps. I could show a couple things, but it's really about what is the average cost per deal. And there's a tool, we can give this at the end on your website. But it's reivault.com/lead calculator. There's a tool that we built. A lot of us use it for really figuring out, hey, how much money do you want to make this year? Say you want to do $500,000. It'll ask you all the questions and it'll give you all of your key. I mean, the tool will actually tell you how many times do you have to dial the phone, right? To make this amount, it'll say you need to dial 200 dials. You need to connect with 27 sellers. You need to make 18 offers, and if you do all that, you're going to make your $500,000 a deal. It takes all the mystery out of it. We help everybody, by the way, with that when they come join us.
That's awesome stuff, and we'll definitely link that up in the show notes, and we can talk about it again at the end. I want to talk about some objections that I get. As a coach, I'm sure you get them too as well. You're coaching, you're mentoring students as well. And let me just ask you the question: do you recommend someone who is brand new to wholesale, they're brand new to real estate, they're just getting started, you recommend this to them to start out just doing the direct mail? It sounds to me like they're spending $2,000 plus the ad spend. It sounds to me like they're going to be doing $4,000 to $5,000 a month in marketing. Do you recommend that in the very beginning?
Not for a brand new investor, somebody brand new, they've never closed a deal. No, I don't. One is this business, their first deal is it has to be, that makes it all real, right? They're getting that first deal and turning a real profit and seeing a $15,000 or $20,000 check go into your bank account, right? It's night and day. Everything before that, there's a lot of what I'd consider risk of losing faith, right? And we shouldn't forget about that. I know you and I both know this, but there's so many inner game, like potential for, this business doesn't work, or I'm not making any money, fear, false evidence appearing real, etc. And so for somebody brand new, I like the co-wholesaling or teaming up with somebody else for their first deal or two. If you're doing direct mail, you can definitely do it on your own. It's not that hard. If somebody's telling you like what list to go get and what postcard to go get, gosh, if your people need that, Brian, I'll give you both those formulas and go make it real for yourself. And then when you're ready to scale up, come join us and we'll make it consistent.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
So that would be one. I mean, first off, if you're brand new, find one strategy, and you're going to learn by doing it. and you're not going to learn every part of the business. You got to understand, especially like if you're wholesaling, which I like right now in this market. All you have to do is it's really sales and marketing. You got to find some sellers, you got to make them some offers. One of it is you're going to get one that signs, and then you're going to have to find a buyer that's interested in buying, and that's really not that hard. And you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars of doing it. I mean, I like the direct mail because you can get a list, you can send out a postcard, you're going to get some calls. You got 20 or 30 calls. You should be able to, like, if you have the right script and formula, you should be able to convert. I don't know if that helps.
It does. So like I kind of say the same thing, and I'm glad you're kind of confirming what I say, because what I believe is if somebody's going to get out there and spend that kind of money on marketing and they're brand new, and let's just say the marketing, it doesn't work, and it's probably going to be you that doesn't work because you're not trained and skilled. You don't know how to follow up. You don't know how to call sellers. You don't know how to talk to sellers. You don't know how to go on an appointment. You don't know all these things. I feel like in the beginning, you need to start learning these skills first before you start spending money on, especially that kind of money, on leads, because there's so many different free and cheap ways to get leads that I recommend people that start there first. Mess up on the free leads.
Yeah. Oh, mess up on as many free leads as you possibly can. I would completely agree with you on that. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Let me tell you, when I first did the business, and was just getting started, I was actually cold calling. I didn't know any other route. I was cold calling, and I had a sales. I was actually a Western Region Director of Sales for a software company. I would literally walk outside and make calls and then come back in. And actually, I ended up, when I finally decided to leave, one of the guys said, "Hey, what do you think we think you're doing all day long?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "We know that you're actually out there like doing a real estate business on the side." I was shocked. I'm like, "Gosh, I thought I was a little bit more discreet and coy on that." But I was cold calling, and I ended up, I ended up getting a list. These people were actually in distress. That's what I knew at the time, and I actually dialed for dollars. And it happened that our list provider here in California had a list of phone numbers, and I did that. And then everybody I talked to, I said, if you know of anybody that is a referral that's thinking of selling, I'd love the referral. I'll pay you for that. And I got one of my big deals. First 3 big deals was off of a guy who was a termite inspector that was doing a termite inspection, and found out this guy was thinking about selling his house, and he called me, and I ended up buying it.
It's awesome. Let's talk about that. You call it dialing for dollars. It's almost like cold calling. Everybody thinks it's this brand new thing that just came out, and it's like people have been cold calling since what, the 50s or 60s.
Yeah, and by the way, in every industry, it's called inside sales. Every business has inside sales and outside sales, and by the way, they're 2 totally separate functions. Inside sales is dialing for dollars, which means, hey, you got a list of phone numbers, and you're dialing, and really you're just testing motivation. You're asking 4 questions, and those questions, if you want the 4 questions, I'll even tell your people where to go and get those 4 questions.
Yeah, Gary, you're giving away so much stuff. We want it all. They're saying, yes, Brian, stop interrupting him. Let him give the stuff away.
But let me tell you. Let's take the numbers, the real numbers. You dial. If you've got a list of sellers, okay, dial 100, and let's say these are existing leads. These are people that have actually dialed. Maybe they came in from a website, but you have their phone number. 100 attempts of dialing the phone number, you on average are going to connect to about 13, right? Between 13 and 18 sellers. That's, by the way, we dialed 107,000 numbers for our group. We're just last month, and we're at about 50,000 right now. And I know this. It's 14,000 connections. So 107, we got 14,000 connections. That means sellers who picked up. Right, it didn't go to voicemail. Right. It didn't not answer. It wasn't a wrong number. So, and then of those 100, you should be able to get about 2 to 3 appointments. Okay. Appointments, which means a seller that goes through the script says, yeah, I've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. So let's just assume that you get 3 appointments and dial 100. right? And let's say one out of those 3 appointments, you end up signing a $15,000 deal, a flip. So 100 dials, only a handful of them actually pick up, and then you get 3 appointments, and let's say one of them converts into a 15,000. That means every dial of the phone is worth $150, right? $150 times 100 dials is the 15,000 bucks. It is a no-brainer. There is so much money, and that doesn't. The $150 per dial doesn't matter whether somebody answers or not. It is a high-value function, and so some people, are spending their time going and finding a mailing list, or they're trying to figure out some postcard, or they're trying to spend some time like figuring out a contract. It's like, no, the money should be really on getting in front of sellers, right, and building a pipeline. This whole business is a sales and marketing business.
Totally. Especially if you're talking about wholesaling, no doubt about it. So, so Gary, I feel like you're kind of giving me some conflicting information here. You're telling me that direct mail is all the rage. You believe in it, 27 million pieces over the lifetime. And now you're telling me dollar for dollar, it sounds like inside sales, cold calling is...
Well, I may have made a little bit of a...
Let's talk about it. Let's compare the two.
So you have to get those numbers that I gave you for dialing and phone calling is basically you have to get those people to call. Those numbers are on people that have come to you and called either off of some kind of marketing, either hitting your website or Facebook ads or direct mail.
So that's not a cold call, really.
No. Cold calling. The cold calling, 100 dials. You're averaging about 5 people that are picking up, and if you've got a really good script and a good person that's doing it, about 0.4 appointments. So
that's about 250, 220
per appointment.
250 per appointment.
Right.
So okay, so what you were talking about earlier was your existing leads. So I would consider that to be more follow-up.
Correct.
Than actual like cold calling. So what you're saying with cold calling itself, let's talk about that. Going to get a list and just calling the heck out of a list, or sending that to a VA, sending that to someone who can do that for you. Because you mentioned the very beginning, kind of direct mail versus cold calling, it's kind of close right now.
Right.
You're seeing, across the board, not just what you're doing, but with the people that you're talking to all throughout the industry. But I know you still love direct mail. What's the appeal of cold calling, even though the numbers are, you got to call tons and tons more? What's the appeal of cold calling? Is it the expense?
You actually brought it up. This is one of the oldest things, and doing direct mail, doing cold calling, these are some of the oldest things in the business that have been probably since the 50s. Why is cold calling really popular right now? It's because most people aren't doing it. Direct mail has gotten more competitive. So the cost per lead, the cost per deal has definitely gone up. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there were less people doing it. And I think cold calling right now, there's less people doing it. Why? First off, you've got to get the right names and addresses. That's not too hard. If you're doing direct mail, you got to do that anyway. Then you've got to skip trace and get phone numbers. You need to know, okay, where do I get the right phone numbers? IDI, by the way, is probably where most of us, it used to be TLO, but IDI or Brett Tanner, there's a few different people that are able to get really good phone numbers right now. And so people, then you got to pay for those numbers, right? Typically you're going to pay anywhere from 15 to 50 cents per group of numbers. Then in order to do cold calling, you do have to load it into an auto dialer. So most people, if they're dialing manually, the ROI isn't there. You can't do it. You need to put it into an auto dialer. We use 5.9, but some people use Mojo dialer. 5.9 is that's what the big credit card companies that are doing massive volume. The Mojo dialer is more of a kind of a smaller tool for some investors. But auto dialer means that you can dial, and here's the math, you should be able to dial about 450 dials a day. Okay? If you're manually dialing, you can do about 100, and that's if you're doing it full time. So if you're just cold calling, you're going to have a pretty low connection rate. So 100 dials, we're seeing about 5, on average, 5 sellers. Where if you're doing follow-up, 100, you're getting 13 to 20, 13 to 18. And then the conversion, you're asking a seller, hey, are you interested in possibly selling? And all you're looking for is a yes, and what number would they be happy with if they sold? It's just a few questions, right? We're also finding that what I'm seeing, and this is not only our findings, but also people that are really doing this in the business, it takes about 1 in 30, 1 in 40 of those sellers that are putting up their hand to close a deal. That's what we're finding. So your cost per deal off of cold calling, I'm seeing kind of consistently more like around $3,000 a deal.
Wow.
Pretty consistent across all the markets, by the way.
Yeah. I want to transition finally. I want to talk about sales, because you said this is kind of your bread and butter, it sounds like. Let's talk to the person who, it sounds like REI Vault is going to do pretty much everything for you up to the point to where you actually have to go on the appointment. Let's talk about that appointment. What do we do? What do we say? What do we do to, you said that you have some of the best success, getting the best deals, negotiating the best deals. What do we do? What do we say? How do we get people to sign on the dotted line for our price?
Yeah. So I think number one, this is once you have a seller that is interested in selling, right? So you've gotten somebody to take them to a point of saying, yeah, I'm interested in selling, and now you're going to meet with them. That kind of what we call sales acquisitions. Number one, if you can do it face to face, your close rate and the number of interactions typically goes well. Your close rate, your higher chance of closing face to face than over the phone. Over the phone, people are doing it. I'm doing it in my business, but we're finding that we have to have more interactions. So we have to talk to them more times. Where if we're face to face, we can look them in the eyes, and so that's one. So I always recommend, if you can be face to face with the seller, do it. I know Sean Terry and a lot of us who are talking about this would say the same thing. A lot of the masterminds. Number two is people buy or sell the people that they like, trust, and respect. It's the oldest rule in sales, and it is a relationship business. And so a lot of people will just think it's all about price, and they wonder why they're not closing a super high number of deals, and it's not. I think it was actually John. I may be wrong. It might have been John Martinez, and I don't want to misquote him. He's awesome, by the way. Probably one of the best sales trainers. You know John, right?
Yeah, he's been on our show. He was on our show probably episode 65, 70-ish.
Yeah.
So we'll link that up. We'll link that up in the show notes.
We have a lot of people in REI Vault that have actually been through his training, and I've never heard anybody say anything negative about his training. But it's a relationship. It is about building rapport. And so I personally, I was telling this a couple days ago, I don't think I've ever bought a property without finding a problem. For me, we're solving a problem. As a real estate investor, typically if you're buying below market, right, and we're buying below market, all cash or creatively and whatever it might be, it's usually because the seller has some problem. Maybe they don't live in the area. Maybe it's somebody that's older and they're relocating a family member. Maybe there was a death. Maybe there's dispute with the family, right? We have a particular mailing list that's awesome called our invisible list. It's a inherited, kind of non-owner occupied, high equity list that's huge. It's like there's 18 million properties on this list. So we're getting a lot of people with those problems, and a really good salesperson in this business is somebody that's able to build rapport and ask probing questions, and drilling for pain, and then creating a solution that's workable. And trying to create, I call it, with our group, I always say you want to go from a pest, a great sales rep is going from a pest to a guest to a welcome advisor. And so I would, like in my deals, it's always like working with the seller. There's a great book. It's not necessarily a real estate book. It's probably one of the best sales books I've ever read. It's called Samurai Selling. And it's really about comparing a great salesperson to a samurai warrior. And it was about honor. So the samurai warrior wasn't about being great with the sword and killing people. It was actually about honor, the shogun. and comparing a really good salesperson to a samurai, which is, honor the seller. Come in and find those, probe for those problems. If it's all about, you trying to just get the smoking best deal and your close rates are going to go, and sellers know that. And I love it, right? If our sales team is competing with somebody else that's a scumbag, excuse the words, we always win, right? Because it's not about price. I think it's 17 or 20% of sellers. This is a survey, and again, I don't know who did the survey. I thought it was John, but it was 17 or 20% sellers said that their number one motivation was price. 80% was other things, around the relationship, around the services, being able to help them with relocation, et cetera. So.
Yeah. Gary, can you give the people listening, maybe, I love action steps. I think what you gave is some really great information. Give me one or two rapport building, I don't want to say secrets, but maybe just actionable things that people could say. You said probing questions. What's a really good question or two, or something that you've had success with in the past?
When I'm sitting down with the seller and my team, I always say I'm not scripted. Everybody that knows me, they say I'm extremely scripted. They know exactly I'm gonna say to a seller, like right before I say it. I'll walk into a house or I'll talk to a seller. They'll be older. I'll tell them, that I'll let them know, look, I do this full time. I've got two daughters, got a college daughter and a younger daughter. I do this full time. And if I can make a small, modest profit somehow, some way, in exchange for, helping you, and you're okay with me making a small profit, I'm your guy. I'd love to buy this property, and I can do it on your terms. If you want to close right away, you want to leave everything in the house, I'm good with that, as long as you're okay with me making a small profit.
I like that.
And you know what? I cannot tell you how many properties I've purchased just using those simple words. Because a lot of people come in and they just I just need to know, will you take $100,000 for the house? And they don't understand, so I'm teeing it up. I'll ask them questions around, what are their thoughts? I'll never come in and recommend the changes to a house. This is one thing I've learned this by making the wrong mistakes. But when you walk into a house, be very careful of telling them all the repairs you're going to do, because some of these people, especially if they've owned the house, may be attached to the house. So many times I've walked in and I've asked, gosh, you're a better expert than I am on this property. What would you do if you had, $50,000? What kind of improvements would you do if you and then I can't tell you how many properties I've purchased that way. Where people have said, I'm like, that's exactly what I plan on doing, is coming in and helping and doing this and putting a really nice family into the house, etc.
That's awesome.
Let's see, what else would I say? I'm always looking for, if they're older, if there's, I share stories instead of many of the things that I do will be based on stories. My mom broke her hip this year. She's 84. And so I'll share some stories of that. And I'll just build rapport. I'll kind of talk about my mom on the phone, and then I find out, sure enough, that the husband's wife fell and broke her hip, or she's just had surgery, and they'll open up something that they normally wouldn't. So I ask a lot of the questions. I am very slow on making offers. I am probably slower than most people. I've learned this probably through massive amounts of sales training in other industries, but I don't come in and just say, hey, I got to get in here and make an offer to a seller. I allow them to really come up with the number, and we explore it together. And especially if I'm doing it over the phone, I will never give bad news in writing. So if I'm going to give somebody an offer I will actually call them beforehand and say, gosh, I'm ready to send this offer over to you to purchase, but do you mind if I ask you just a few more questions before I send it? And I'll ask them a few questions about the roof and how long did they do such and such. And I say, I'm looking at the offer. We're thinking about this number. And I just wanted to make sure that was kind of where you were hoping to be. because I'm going to drop that news, right, softly to as opposed to just sending them an offer. The other thing is I've never had sellers don't call back. You always have to assume that you have to pick up the phone or text message a seller.
Yeah.
There's hope is not a strategy. There's a book called that. It's a great book. But if you're sitting there ever saying, I'm hoping this seller is going to call me, it'll never work. I can't tell you how many deals where sellers have called me back. Almost zero. You always have to proactively pick up the phone and call them. And many times I'll call a seller and I'll actually apologize. This doesn't work for everybody. It sure works for me, which is I'll call back and say, gosh, Martha, I apologize for, I had you on my list to call you a couple of days ago, and I just didn't want to drop the ball. And I wanted to just see if you had any more opportunity to think about the offer, anything else I can provide you. And here's my number, and then I'll call her back again. Sometimes I'll even put a letter in the mail with the idea of using it as a way to get back on the phone.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if that helps. I know I'm giving a lot of detail, but
no, it helps. I love just kind of putting some theory together with some actual actionable steps. I'm a big believer in that. I think that there's a big difference between education and actual instruction. So people are listening to this podcast. You actually I got a great nugget out of that. So hopefully you did too. Gary, I can't thank you. I don't want to waste a ton of your time. I can't thank you enough for even doing the show. And I know you mentioned a couple of different ways that people could reach out to you, maybe get a couple of resources, and I'll definitely give you that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. There's a video. I put this together for actually a CEO of a hedge fund, and I liked the video and got good feedback on it. It kind of walks through a little bit more about REI Vault. REIvault.com/4CEOs. REIvault.com/4CEOs. That's spelled out FOR and then CEOS. There's a video. It's about 12 minutes long. And then at the bottom it says, see if you qualify to become a member. We're an invite-only group, so make sure that you tell us REI Live or Brian Trippe was the one that sent you, because this is not a vendor model, it's a service. We're basically saying, hey, let's get a group of us where like-minded investors where they can share our team. And so we want to make sure that you came in through a trusted friend or one of our members. There's a couple of websites, REIvault.com/lead calculator. That is, if you really want to kind of flesh out your numbers in terms of like you want to make $500,000 or $1 million this year in the next 12 months, you want to take all the mystery out of what your target should be. That's a really good website. We built a tool, a script for talking to sellers. Especially, this is actually a bunch of us within REI Vault built this. It's part of our product, actually. It's called our Sales Ninja web form. This is the exact script of what to say to a seller. And it's, if you're doing outbound cold calling, what questions to ask, what's the first sentence when a seller answers the phone to say? If you're calling back an existing lead, what to say if you're following up with them. So that website is REIvault.com/Sales Ninja. And you can get that REIvault.com/Sales Ninja, SALESNINGA. And there's exactly the words. I think you'll love that. That's awesome. That's the same script that our phone team did 107,000 outbound calls last month. So you can have it.
I'm definitely gonna go check out those resources. I highly encourage everyone listening to go check out those resources. Gary, I want to thank you again, and I also want to give a shout out to Ray Burkhalter, who actually kind of in a sort of roundabout way connected the two of us. I know he's done some work for you in the past, and you guys have a really good relationship, and that was how the door kind of got opened up to us meeting each other. So I appreciate him, and I appreciate you coming on the show and providing just tons and tons of value to the audience.
Awesome, Brian. It was great. Great pleasure, and good luck to everybody, and happy real estate investing.
Guys, we love you so much. Hit the subscribe button. You don't want to miss out on all the unbelievable, incredible content, all the amazing guests, just like Gary, that are coming on the show in the future. So hit the subscribe button. We love you so much, and we'll see you next time.